For the next 30 days, I will be playing Jailbreak to get my way up to the most valuable car in the entire game, the Torpedo. I have never traded in Jailbreak, so this is my very first time. I'd seen people talking about it, flexing their trades, showing off their rare vehicles, but I never really understood it. I always thought, how does this even work? Like, what's worth what? What do people even want? I was completely clueless. But I decided, you know what? Let's just try it out. Worst case, I mess up, right? So I went to the trading hub with my Manta and a few random vehicles. Nothing crazy, just the stuff I wasn't really using. Eventually, I sent a trade request to a player hoping to get a good offer for my stuff. He had a Wedge and a Maverick. I traded him a Manta, dual rockets, and 2 Volt bikes. I had stuff I didn't even think was worth much, and to my surprise, he accepted. I didn't realize it at the time, but the trade was actually a 250k profit for me. I felt like a genius, even though I had no clue what I was doing. Then something amazing happened. I was hanging out in the hub, not expecting much, when a player randomly sent me a trade. At first, I thought they'd flex some rare items and then cancel, because, let's be honest, that happens a lot. But instead, they put a hammerhead in the trade window. I waited, thinking they'd ask me for something I didn't have, but instead they typed, "Here, take it. Good luck on your journey." I couldn't believe it. No strings attached, no weird demands, just a genuine gesture. When they hit accept, I was in shock. It was such a small thing for them, but for me it changed everything. That kind of support gave me the motivation to keep going and see how far I could get. It made me realize how awesome the Jailbreak community can be sometimes. After that, I started feeling a bit more confident. I was scrolling through trades when I spotted someone offering a Roadster. It caught my eyes because I knew it had decent demand, and I figured this might be my chance to level up. I put together an offer: a Surus, La Matador, Cybertruck, and a couple of other in-game vehicles. Honestly, I wasn't sure if they'd accept, but after a bit of waiting, they did. I felt like I was finally starting to get the hang of it. I was starting to figure out that trading isn't about what you like, it's about what other people want. Then came an interesting trade. I saw someone offering a Volt bike and I thought, why not give it a shot? I didn't expect much. I put up a Star Spangled texture, Volt texture, Ray, XRK, and a Shell Mark V. Honestly, it felt like I was overpaying, but these were all low demand items I wasn't using much. When they accepted, I wasn't sure if it was a win or loss. Later, I realized it was actually a smart move. Even though I lost value, I swapped my low demand items for a high demand Volt bike. It wasn't the biggest trade of the day, but it taught me an important lesson. Sometimes trading isn't just about profit, it's about positioning yourself for better trades later. By the end of the day, I couldn't believe how far I'd come. I started as a total noob, barely understanding how trades work, and somehow ended up with more value than I started with. If you're new to Jailbreak, trust me, it's not as scary as it looks. Just start small, take your time, and you might surprise yourself. Now it's day 2, and day 2 didn't start off as your typical trading day. I went to the trading lobby, like always, hoping to make some decent flips or even spot a good deal. I wasn't expecting much, but then something unexpected happened. I found a player who was just super chill. He was willing to trade me a Manta, one of those cars with solid demand. I was kind of broke at this point, so I didn't have much to offer, but I still threw in an Eclair and a La Matador. At that time, I didn't think too much about it, honestly. It felt like the Manta was a win for me, even if it wasn't exactly free. It was a simple trade, but little did I know that was the only real trade I'd do that day. Because then I thought, this isn't a day trade. This isn't a day for trading. I need to grind. One thing I've learned about Jailbreak trading is that having cash matters. The more money you have, the better vehicles or items you can buy in-game to trade later. If you're low on vehicles, grinding is hands down the best way to build up your inventory. So I decided to switch gears, literally, and focus on making money for the rest of the day. I went into the cop team. Why? Because playing as a cop is one of the fastest ways, if not the best way, to make cash in Jailbreak. All those high bounty criminals running around, free money for me. I went into a public server, opened the bounty board, and started hunting. I'm not even gonna lie, at first, it was a struggle. Some of these guys were good. They had fault bikes, concepts, you name it. Trying to chase them down in a regular cop car was not good, but I kept at it. I camped the jewelry store and the bank, hiding just far enough away so no one noticed me. The second the robbery ended, boom, I was there, ready to arrest. Slowly but surely, the cash started stacking up. I'd arrest one guy with 10k bounty, then switch servers to find more high bounty players. It wasn't cool, but it worked. After about an hour of this strategy camp, chase, arrest, repeat, I was starting to get in a rhythm. Every server I joined, I made sure to check the bounty board. If there were big bounties, I stayed. If not, I hopped to the next one. Grinding like this might not sound exciting, but trust me, it pays off. At one point, I got lucky. I joined a server where some players were grinding hard. There was a guy with a 20k bounty, another with 15k, and a few smaller ones. I waited until they started their robberies and followed their moves. Arresting them felt like hitting a jackpot. It's crazy how much cash you can make if you're patient. Now there were moments where I almost gave up. Some players were just too quick. I'd get close to arresting them, but only for them to speed off in a jet or disappear with the C4 escape. But instead of getting frustrated, I switched up my strategy. I started using the heli and camping high up spots where criminals couldn't see me coming. It worked way better than I expected. After a few hours of grinding like this, I managed to stack up 1 million cash. That's right, 1 million in one day. This was huge for me. It meant I could start buying better cars like the Roadster or the Volt bike, which I knew had good demand in the trading world. This grind wasn't just about the cash, it was about setting myself up for better trades later. And honestly, grinding as a cop turned out to be fun. The thrill of chasing criminals, catching them at last second, and seeing the cash roll in. Plus, switching the servers and hunting for high bounties kept things interesting. By the end of the day, I didn't make a ton of trades, but I felt like I made progress. I had my Manta, and I added 1 million to my account. If you're ever stuck in jailbreak trading and don't know how to level up your inventory, just take a day like this to grind, build your cash, buy cards, and then get back into trading. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. If you're lagging in jailbreak and keep getting disconnected, or you keep dying or getting arrested because of your ping, don't worry, I got you. LagoFast will help you fix your trash ping and make you turn into a pro in a click of a button. Using this app will reduce your ping a lot, and even I use it so I have the best possible gameplay. All you do is press Roblox and press boost, and it will automatically do everything to reduce your ping. It also boosts your FPS by going to the FPS tab and pressing boost, which helps a lot as well. Make sure to download LagoFast, link in the description. And if you like it, you can purchase the full version for as low as $7 a month with my discount code SENSE for 30% off. Use it now to become a pro in jailbreak. Day 3 didn't exactly start on a high note. I sent an offer to a player for their Manta for my Maverick and Successor, which was a big win for me, but they rejected it, saying they wanted 3 million value for the Manta. That seemed way overpriced to me, so I moved on, feeling a bit frustrated but determined to keep going. After some searching, I found another player who was willing to trade. I ended up giving my Blackhawk, Laviolette, and Successor for their Manta and Hyper 1. It was a big win for me, which was around 300k. I knew it could open the door to better trades down the line. Later, I made what felt like a really smart trade. I traded my Scorp for a Carbonara. The Scorpion's demand is pretty low, but the Carbonara's value has been going up lately, so I felt like this was a great deal. The highlight of the day though was when I traded 2 Volt bikes and a drone for a Concept. The Concept's value is solid, and it could lead me to some decent limited vehicles like the Agent or Airtel. It felt like a step in the right direction, and I was starting to see the potential in each trade I made. By the end of day 3, I felt like I was starting to understand the game better. Not every trade was a win, but each one brought me closer to my goals. Day 4 started off with a bit of a loss. I traded my Manta, Maverick, Stunt Plane for an Airtel and Hyper level 1. On paper, it was a 500k loss, but I didn't mind too much. Airtel has great demand, so I figured they'd be easier to trade later. It felt like a step in the right direction. A little while later, I found a great trade. I offered my Airtel, Eclair, and Roadster for a snake, and the other player accepted. The snake has really great demand, and I got it for underpay, which was really good. Then came a trade I was really proud of. I traded my snake and carbonara for a Parisian. The Parisian is way more in demand than the snake, and it was rising at that time. So this was a big win for me. At this point, I was starting to feel more confident in my trade. But the best moment of the day, I met a fan. Huge shout out to YN Logan, who traded me his Manta for my Jones just to support my journey. This was such a cool moment and gave me a big motivation boost. Later, I made one of my biggest wins of the day. I traded my Parisian Concept and Manta for an M12. It was a pretty decent trade, and I upgraded my 3 smaller cars for a bigger car, and I knew I could get some great trades out of it later. To finish off the day, I decided to go for a Hyperchrome. I traded my Concept, Hammerhead, and Roadster for a Hyper level 2. After some tough negotiating, I flipped it for a Snake and Rattler. It was a solid way to end the day, and I felt like I was really making progress. I didn't play for a couple of days, so it is now day 5. Day 5 started with a nice flip. I traded my Venom, Roadster, and a few ads for a Concept. This trade gave me a higher value vehicle with better demand, so I was off to a solid start. Then came one of the best trades of the day. I traded my M12 from day 4 for a Parisian, Concept, Megalodon, Maverick, and Bull Bike. This was a huge win for me. Getting all those vehicles in one trade felt good and gave me a lot more flexibility for future deals. After a bit of roaming around, I found someone willing to trade their P1 for my Parisian, Snake, Concept, and Volt Bike. This was a bit of an overpay, but Power 1 has great value and demand, so I saw this as a win. To wrap up the day, I made another solid trade. I traded my Concept for Jet, Manta, Roadster, OG Lamatador, Hyper Diamond level 1, Hyper Green level 1. This was a huge win, and it was a great way to end the day with a mix of vehicles and hypers to work with for my next trade. Day 6 was another big learning day for me. I forgot to record, but I traded my P1 for Hyper 4. I know it seems bad, but some people really overpay for hypers. So I waited, and I swapped my Hyper 4 for my P1 again, but with Hyper 2 and a Pixel. It was a big win because I got my P1 back and an extra Hyper 2 and a Pixel. Not long after, I flipped the same Power 1 for an Aperture and Carbonara. That is a big win, as Aperture is now 7 million and Carb is 4.5, making this a 1.5 million trade, and I was hyped. I couldn't believe how much I was starting to recognize good deals. Later, I traded my Jet for a Volt Bike and Little Bird. Basically, I got a free Little Bird out of the deal, and I wasn't complaining. Then came one of the most exciting trades of the day. After a lot of back and forth negotiations, I traded my Aperture and Volt for a Shogun. At this point, I've been keeping an eye on the Shogun's rising value, so I knew this was a win. But at that time, Aperture was only worth like 5 million, so this was like a 1 million win. A bit later, I traded 2 Volt Bikes and a Roadster for a Concept. This was a pretty good solid trade, as I give 3 small cars for almost the same value as the Concept. But the demand is what made it better. People love the Concept, and I knew it would help me land a better trade soon. And that better trade came quickly. I traded my Concept Little Bird Challenger for a Hammerhead, Manta, and a bunch of ads. That one definitely felt like a win. Toward the end of the day, I made a big win. I flipped my Hyper Diamond 1 for a Blackhawk. That was a like 500k win. That trade felt like a big step forward. Who doesn't love a Blackhawk? Then things got a little tricky. I traded my Hammerhead for an Eclair for another Eclair and Hyper 1. I wasn't sure if this was a win or a loss, so let me know in the comments what you think. To wrap up the day, I made 2 more trades. First, I traded my level 1 Volt Bike, Eclair, and drone for Diamond 1. Then I swapped that red Hyper Red for another Diamond 1. Both trades felt like wins because I gained value in demand. By the end of day 6, I was starting to feel like I really knew what I was doing. I'd gone from being clueless about trading to making some pretty solid moves. And it just goes to show that if you stick with it, you can learn a lot and maybe even come out on top. Now it's day 7. Day 7 started with a surprising trade. I was looking around the hub when I found someone offering a Manta and a Hyper Orange level 1. I knew Manta had really good demand and orange colors are pretty valuable, so I decided to send a trade request. I offered my Eclair, drone, Volt Bike, and La Violette. Since obtainable values are cut in half when trading for limited, this was a good trade, and not a lot of people know. But to my surprise, I felt like this was a good deal because Manta always gets solid offers thanks to its demand. It felt like a good win to start the day. Then something bold happened. I decided to go big and offer for a Torp. If you know jailbreak trading, you know the Torpedo is the car everyone wants. It's super rare and insanely valuable. Right now, it's worth 35 million. I put my best offer. P1, carb, 2 pixel textures, 2 volts, and a Maverick. I thought maybe, just maybe the player would accept. But no, the trade got declined. To be honest, I wasn't surprised. It's a Torp. It's a Torpedo after all. But still, it was my first time ever trying to trade for something that rare. Even though I didn't get it, I saw it as a learning experience. It showed me that big trades like this are all about patience and timing. But my luck quickly turned around. Later in the day, I traded my Black Hawk for a Volt Bike and an Escape Bot. Here's the thing, Black Hawk is a solid vehicle, but getting an extra Escape Bot out of the trade felt like a steal. Sometimes the best wins are the ones you don't expect. It was like getting a free Escape Bot for just trading away my Black Hawk for a Volt Bike which has better demand. Trades like these are why I love Jailbreak. You never know when a small deal will turn into a big win. Then things just kept getting better. I found someone willing to trade me a Scorpion for my Carbonara and Volt Bike. I traded my Scorp for a Carb, so this was a little bit of a loss. But the Scorpion's value is a lot higher, and its demand is like decent. It felt like I was starting to make smarter moves, slowly building up better vehicles and value. But that wasn't all. I had a pixel texture sitting in my inventory, and I knew it was worth about 1.5 million. I found a player who offered me 2 Volt Bikes for it. At first I thought it was an even trade, but when I did the math, I realized it was a 500k profit. But now that I realize it, it was actually a loss, but at that time, I thought it was a win. By the end of these trades, I felt like I was really making progress. Wins like these, small or big, are what kept me motivated to keep trading. By the end of the 7th day, I was feeling pretty good. I started the day with a solid trade for a Manta, got rejected on a Torpedo attempt, and finished off with a trade that earned me a free Escape Box. It's been a week since I started, and I'm realizing that every win, loss, or failed offer teaches you something new. Now it's day 8. I haven't played Jailbreak for a couple days, so now it's officially the 8th day of me playing Jailbreak. It started off with me trading my drone, Volt Bike, and Roadster for a concept. That is another good trade, as I'm trading 3 small values to an equal amount of a big car. Then I found someone who wanted my Scorp. The demand for Scorpion had dropped significantly, so when they offered me a Carbonara and bunch of ads, I didn't even hesitate. It was a clear win for me. I got way more value out of the trade, and I didn't have to hold on to a vehicle nobody wanted. Next up, another clean win. I traded my Volt, Hyper Green 1 for another Volt and a bunch of ads. At first, it looked like a basic trade, but then I added up the extras and it was definitely a solid win. But the biggest moment of the day came when I traded for my first high value vehicle. I offered a mix of items: P1 carb, 2 pixels, concept, maverick, and 2 blue bikes for a proto 8. Couldn't believe it. This was my first vehicle over 20 million. It felt like a huge milestone in my trading journey. To wrap up the day, I made one last trade. I swapped the proto 8 for a power 1 and 2 carbs. I did lose a bit of value, but I knew I could flip these for solid trades later. By the end of the day, I made some huge progress. I started small, but now I was trading for vehicles with massive value. This showed me how far I'd come as a trader, making smart moves, understanding demand, and climbing higher step by step. Now it's day 9. And day 9 was full of ups and downs, but overall, it turned out to be a big winning day. I kicked things off by trading my power 1 for an aperture, snake, and wedge. This was a big win, which was around 2 million. A little while later, I decided to trade my wedge for an airtail. At that time, I thought it was a decent trade, but when I checked later, I realized it was actually a slight loss. But the airtail has way better demand than wedge, and wedge is dropping. And then came the big trade of the day. I put together a huge bundle: drone, aperture, 2 carbs, airtail, snake, volt bike, and blackhawk, and traded all for a javelin. When I hit accept and saw the trade go through, I couldn't believe it. I finally had the javelin. This car is worth 25 million, and this was one of those moments that made me realize just how far I'd come. My inventory went from around 4 million to 25 million in just 9 days. By the end of the day, I was feeling pretty good. Sure, there were a couple of small setbacks, but getting the javelin made it all worth it. At this point, I knew I was really starting to get the hang of trading. Day 10, the final day. After this day, I stopped playing Jailbreak. I thought reaching the javelin was it, but I strived for that torpedo, and I played once again on the last day, day 30. The most intense one yet. I started the day with one goal in mind: get the torpedo. If you know Jailbreak, torpedo is the ultimate flex. It's the most valuable vehicle in the game, and every trader dreams of owning one. So I put together my best offer: javelin, stallion, and a bunch of other ads. I wasn't sure if it would be enough. The torpedo was worth 10 million more than this, and people are super picky when it comes to trading for it. I sat there waiting nervously as the other player looked at my offer. Seconds felt like hours, hours felt like days. I was ready for him to say nah, add more, or just cancel the trade completely. But then he hit accept. I couldn't believe it. I stared at the screen, waiting to make sure it wasn't some kind of mistake. But nope, it was real. I finally had the torpedo. From starting as a clueless noob on day 1 to making mistakes, learning, and grinding my way through trades, I reached the top. I got the one car every trader wants. It felt like the perfect ending to this journey. If you made it this far, just remember anyone can do this. Start small, keep learning, and don't give up. And make sure to join my Discord, link in the description, so you can ask for tips. And I'll see you in the next video.